A Karen and her daughter confront me while I'm blind with a guide dog and accuse me of lying about my disability despite me showing her proof. Security ends up getting called, and one of the guards does not believe me. Here's what happened. You know, it's actually sad how often this sort of thing happens. I mean, being a blind girl, instances of ignorant people are daily. But entitled parents represent a certain level of infamy for me. But this one just happened, so hey, why not make myself feel better by making you guys read about my misfortune? The people involved in the story is me, an entitled mother, and 2 security guards. So since my parents are more at risk from the COVID, I've been going shopping alone more and more, often during the pandemic. Yesterday was one of these cases. Grocery shopping is a more involved process for a blind person. I have to ask a staff member to assist me. I also have my guide dog, Gumbo, inside with me. The dog, in itself, increases the instances of bad experiences. Now, during my shopping, I always get a wide array of reactions to my dog, but one in particular occurred towards the end of my shopping. I heard loud footsteps, followed by the loud screech of, "That doggy is so cute, can I pet him?" It was obviously a small child by the voice, so I prepared myself before responding that, no, my dog cannot be touched due to him being a guide dog. Surprisingly, the child didn't act entitled, but seemed surprised and excited about a dog having a job. She, I believe it was a she, asked me a few questions and then left. I thought nothing of it and continued with my shopping. After I finished, I decided to stop by the food court on the way out for some lunch. So I went and made my way across the supermarket. I ordered my food, sat down, and waited. But by some cosmic racing of bad luck, that this is the exact moment that this child and their parent decided to walk close by. I heard the child tell the mother about what I told her, about how my dog is working as a guide dog, that I'm blind and use him to get around, etc. The mother isn't really saying anything, but I can sort of tell by her tone and the few words she does say that she is seeing some issue with what her daughter was told. I decided to listen in, and after the daughter finished her babbling, the mother came up to me. Now, as I said, people coming up to me is super common. I thought nothing much of it. However, the first words out of her mouth were, "Why did you tell my daughter you're blind?" Her tone was very harsh, very accusatory. I immediately knew what was coming, but as usual, I put on a smile. Because I am blind. Your daughter asked me about my dog, so I explained what guide dogs are and why we use them. Liar, you're not blind. Excuse me? The straight-shooting words caught me off guard. Do you need me to repeat myself? You're not blind. My cousin is blind, so I know what a blind person is like. You shouldn't lie about it. I think you should let my daughter pet the dog. She likes dogs. It's pretty bitchy to refuse a child something like that. My cackles rose slightly. Well, ma'am, not all blind people are the same. Just because you know a single blind person doesn't mean you know how all blind people are. And as I already explained, your daughter can't pet my dog due to him being a seeing eye dog. Why are you lying? Your eyes are completely fine. You're using a phone. Don't say you're blind if you're going to show you're not at the same time. Why would you lie about this? Excuse me, but I'm not lying. My eyes looking fine have nothing to do with anything. Not every blind person's eyes look the same. Look, you're stressing me out. I'd rather you just left me alone. My daughter wants to pet your dog. She's been well behaved all through today, and it's more than reasonable to let her pet the dog. I said no. I don't know why you can't just accept my answer. You said no using that bullshit excuse. You're honestly starting to piss me off. I don't know who you think you are, but I happen to work for some company. I forgot which one. And if you don't stop it, I'll get security to throw you and your fake guide dog out of here. Now, I'm sure you get the picture. This went on for a good 5 minutes of her getting progressively more and more angry at the fact I wouldn't let her daughter pet my dog. The daughter was actually silent through the whole thing. I don't really think she even cared that much. The entitled mother, however, was another story. Eventually, she screamed out, "That's it! I'm going to get security. If you're smart, you'll be gone by the time I get back or you'll regret it." I snorted at her small fit and heard her huff and storm off. By that time, my food had arrived, so I started eating. I didn't really believe she'd go to get security, but with entitled parents, you can't be sure. About, 5 minutes or so went by of me eating. I was enjoying my fries, browsing Reddit in bliss. But of course, she returned. I heard her stupid stomping from like 15 feet away, and she was raging on to an apparent security guard. "Look, that's her. You see, she's sitting there with a dog. She says it's a guide dog, but she's not blind. You have to kick her out. Dogs aren't allowed." I sighed and removed an earbud to prepare for the incoming ordeal. A deep male voice sounded from a few feet in front of me. He sounded rather harassed. Miss, is this a service dog?" "Yes, it is. He's a seeing eye dog. I'm allowed to take him in here. I have a copy of the appropriate law if you need it." "Nah, that's fine. I know service dogs are allowed. This woman is saying you aren't disabled, though. Is that true?" So I say, "No, she's just angry that I didn't let her daughter touch my dog. I honestly don't know why she cares." "Because you're a liar. I told you. I have a blind cousin. Don't try to tell me I don't understand blind people because I do." I directed my attention to the security guard and said, I've tried to explain to her that one blind person doesn't represent all blind people, but she doesn't seem to get it. Could you please ask her to leave me alone? I just want to eat in peace.
So, you are blind?
Yes, I am.
Can you prove it in any way?
No. How could I do that, and why?
Well, it's just that she's saying one thing, and you're saying another thing. I don't exactly know who to believe, but yeah, I see how proving you're blind doesn't really work.
He then spoke to the woman and asked,
Why is it exactly that you think she's lying?
She responded, Are you serious? Are you thick? Look at her eyes. They're not white or cloudy like blind people's are. She's literally looking at a fucking phone. The guard spoke to me.
Yeah, what's your response?
I sighed. Maybe her cousin has those eye symptoms, but not every blind person does. Those symptoms are caused by diseases like cataracts, which I don't have. As for the phone, devices have been accessible to the blind for years. I find it surprising she's a cousin who's blind and doesn't know that.
No, I saw you look at the phone. You were looking at it.
I have basic light perception. I can detect light. I direct my eyes to it out of habit because that's where my hands are occupied. Look, it's not my job to educate you on what you don't know. I spoke to the guard. Please just ask her to leave me alone. I don't care if she doesn't believe me. You don't need to stand here and mediate a back and forth as if we're going to agree. I'd just like her to stop talking to me and leave me in peace. I'm feeling extremely harassed. The guard then responds,
Yeah, I get that. It's just that I can't know for sure if you're blind, so she might have a valid point.
I was furious. What? That applies to every blind person. How can anyone prove that? If she has no reasons for me lying, then shouldn't you just give me the benefit of the doubt?
I don't know. She said her cousin's blind. She probably knows something about it.
I paused for a second. Wow, I'm not even going to bother. Look, if you're not going to get her away from me, then I'm just going to leave. Thanks for failing to protect a disabled patron. I stood up to leave, my dog getting up to guide me. I took a few steps and suddenly felt someone grab hold of my harness handle tightly and pull me to a stop. It was the mom. Wait, I said I wanted you to let my daughter pet the dog. Then you can leave. No, get off my harness. Get off. Now, understand, grabbing my harness is akin to someone taking away your eyes. She was impeding my means of navigating, so I panicked. This has only happened to me once before, and I panicked then too. I attempted to pull my harness handle back, all the while screaming, Get off! Let go! Help! And her screaming in my ear about... Actually, I wasn't exactly listening as I was too busy screaming, but I assume it had something to do with her daughter. The security guard was fumbling around fairly uselessly. Eventually, another security guard hurried over. I heard him bark out, What's going on? She's taking my guide dog. Help me. She won't let go. The entitled mom responds, No, she's supposed to let my daughter pet her dog. She said so. I assume she pointed to the guard. The guard didn't respond, but the way the conversation went, it seemed like he non-verbally indicated that he hadn't said that.
Miss, let go of the lady's dog right now or I'll escort you out.
No, she's not blind. The dog isn't real. Don't just jump in and assume you know what's going on. I had calmed down slightly so I could speak in a more coherent manner. Please just get her off of me. I want to leave. I don't feel safe. Let me leave. The guard then asked me,
Hey, you alright, miss? Everything's gonna be fine.
I then felt the woman's hand being forcibly removed from the harness handle. As soon as I was free, I immediately commanded Gumbo to lead me to the exit. We walked quickly. I heard the woman screeching loudly behind me, the man shouting,
Calm down, just stop screaming.
I was still somewhat panicked, but I was able to calm myself down as I hurried towards the exit. It was so chaotic, I very nearly forgot my shopping where I left it at customer services, because I didn't want to have it around me in the food court where it could be snatched. I left, called a taxi, and came home. It has really stuck with me for the last couple of days. But the worst part is that these types of interactions are an almost daily occurrence. Blind people are the targets of constant harassment in public. This woman just went further by physically assaulting me. I know I could have and should have gotten her arrested, but honestly, I was just so panicked I wanted out of the situation ASAP. So why am I telling the story? In short, spreading awareness. It's important for people to know more about the blind experience and what blind people have to deal with. It's also super important to say, if you're ever a witness to a situation like I just described, intervene. Had that second guard not intervened for me, the situation would have been a lot worse. That's terrible. I get that with light awareness, you don't wear the classic tinted blind glasses, but even I know, I haven't seen or met anyone who is blind, that not all blind people have milky eyes. I would personally call the mall or store you were at and complain to the manager or supervisor about what happened. Even if you weren't blind, she shouldn't be able to pet your dog if you didn't want her to. That's just messed up. My entitled parents kidnapped me and held me hostage at their home after a major car accident. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I was in a major car accident in January of 2021. Ironically, I had been taking my boyfriend to the ER because he had bleeding ulcers and ended up getting admitted to the hospital that night. This was still when they were enforcing COVID rules, so I was booted out of the hospital at about 0300 in the morning. When I left, it was snowing, and not thinking, hopped on the freeway, which wasn't a good idea. I had been driving a lifted Jeep Cherokee with mud terrain tires, not the best ever for snowstorm driving. Getting off the freeway to go home, my brakes locked up, and I went into a light pole head first at about 60 miles per hour. My Jeep did not have airbags. Needless to say, my car was totaled, and I had to be extracted from the car by the fire department. The whole time I had been blacking out and losing consciousness, and I still get random flashes. I don't have all my memories from that night or several months after the accident. I got sent to the nearest trauma center, which was the same hospital I had just left. The nurses felt pretty bad about kicking me out. I ended up with a moderate to severe TBI, broken under my left eye, hairline fractures on my skull on the left side, bruising behind my ears, and black eyes. I had also cut open the inside of my mouth, had multiple lacerations all over my face. I broke my driver's side window with my face, broke and bruised some ribs and hairline fractures in my spine, broke my right wrist, my right knee, and my left foot, which required 2 surgeries. And I still need approximately 3 more. Needless to say, I was not doing great. I had recently gotten divorced the previous year, and I think that my entitled parents decided that my accident was my boyfriend's fault. I had to stay in the hospital for a total of 12 days, in which case the mild family drama exploded into a severe family inferno. As I got closer to being released, all I had wanted to do was go home to my boyfriend and our kids. He had 2 previously, and I had 1. My entitled mother decided that wasn't what she wanted. On the phone, we sound almost identical. The whole time that I was in the hospital, she had been getting on the phone and impersonating me to my apartment complex management, even going as far as calling the cops to get my boyfriend and his 2 kids removed from my apartment. They were not on my lease yet. My entitled mother also forged my signature on hospital paperwork and made up a story about how my boyfriend was abusive to me and got him banned from seeing me at the hospital. Again, forging my signature and writing a letter stating I didn't want to see him. This whole time, I was still suffering from the effects of my TBI and was delirious from the combination of pain medications and brain fog from my head injury. My mother even had the locks changed on my apartment without my consent. When I finally was released from the hospital, I was in a wheelchair because of my broken foot that had just had 2 plates and 10 screws surgically put in to hold it together, and an ankle-to-hip brace on my other leg for my knee being broken. I requested to go home to my apartment, but again my mother played it that I couldn't go home because I had a 2nd-story apartment and couldn't take care of myself. So I got sent to stay at my parents' house against my will an hour away from home because my mother wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to let my boyfriend back to my apartment. I spent almost a whole miserable month there. My mother refused to take me home even after I got crutches, and I was able to bear some weight. Initially, they refused to even go get my crutches from town because they didn't want me to have more mobility. Eventually, it got to the point where I had a friend come and pick me up from my mother's house, so I could go home because they kept refusing to let me go. As I gained clarity in my mind and was taken off the intense pain medication, I was able to start rectifying the situations that my mother made a huge mess of in my life. But I'm still trying to recover in some areas. I didn't find out until much later when the medical bills started coming in that my mother had called my boyfriend's health insurance company, impersonating me, and had me removed from his insurance. It took months of calling and badgering and footwork on my part to get the situation figured out and have the insurance pay for what they were supposed to pay for. It almost caused me to go bankrupt. At the same time, my mother signed me up for minimal health insurance coverage through the state that I had no idea I was enrolled in until I got a bill later stating that I back owed fees. Needless to say, I eventually completely cut both my mother and father out of my life after finding out how much they tried to control and how much they messed my life up. I ended up getting protection orders after they tried to break into my house, stalked me, and sent family and friends over to harass me. This whole incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. There's quite a bit of retaliation on their side that threw my life into a total tailspin ever since, but I'm sticking to my guns and not backing down. Yo, I totally feel for the OP on this one. It sounds like their parents were acting like total entitled jerks, taking advantage of the fact that the OP was injured and vulnerable after the car accident. It's messed up that they were pretending to be the OP and getting her boyfriend and his kids kicked out of her apartment and then holding her hostage at their house. I can't even imagine how frustrating and scary that must have been. If you like the first story, you should check on one of these stories on the screen right now.